Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Our Life, Beginnings and Always. This is part 2 of the 3-hour-long gaming session that I had, where I was not expecting that it was going to take 3 hours, and so I have kind of awkwardly cut them into 3 different segments here. We're going to be going through the transition, the end of summer for our 13th year, and into the beginning of a new summer when we're 18, and I'm really excited for the events that are about to happen, what we see as an 18-year-old. So I'm going to let you guys hop into that, see the sights, and I hope you enjoy. There was no denying it. Today was the very last day of summer. Tomorrow you were heading to class. Oh boy, it was a bummer. Summer had been so much fun. When you thought about going back to school, it was with a sense of loss. Soon you wouldn't be able to choose how your days were spent without the school bell telling you where to be and when. It was with a heavy heart that you chose your outfit for your final day of freedom. Life was going to be different. You had come to think of the summer vacation as the norm, but school sucked up the majority of the year, whereas the summer vacation was just a respite in the middle. So, rather than it being different, was it kind of a return to the normal? What did your normal life even mean? You considered how fondly your moms talked about their summer vacation as kids. You dimly recognized that one year, the pattern of school and summer itself would be over for good. It was hard to imagine. You gotten distracted, one arm still out of a sleeve. You pulled it through and put your mind back to the present. This season had brought about plenty of changes of its own, like Kyra's visit, though that too is coming to an end today. You were happy you'd finally gotten the chance to know her. She was interesting to be around. You liked how easy it was to talk to her. You finished dressing, which was good. Cove would be there any moment. You'd agreed to see him. Bye, Kyra. Officially, the plan was that he would come over to bring you around to his house when she was ready to set off, but you both knew that you'd be hanging out for at least a little while beforehand. Kyra's visit had troubled Cove when it first happened. It had been a sudden change, thanks to Mr. Holden's infamous tendency to surprise people, but once he was able to adjust, he'd been in pretty good spirits with her around. It was a relief for everyone. The next thought that crossed your mind was, he's coming over to hang out here. I thought I was going over to hang out at his house. No. He could come up by himself then. You made yourself comfortable on your bed. This is where you'd be hanging out, so there wasn't much point in going downstairs just to come straight back up again. It wouldn't be the first, and probably wouldn't be the last, time that Cove brought himself up to your room without you taking him there. A knock at the door broke you from the idle daydream you'd been having about endless summers. You recognized the sound immediately, different from the cheery tune Ma rapped out when she wanted your attention, or Mom's direct beats, and Elizabeth tended to skip knocking completely. Those knocks were just hard enough to be heard and had uncommonly long pauses in between. They were Cove's. Interesting. You can come in. Cove opened the door, smiling casually as he caught your eye. Hi, Kit. You waved by way of response. He stepped further into the room. With other guests, you might have offered them a seat, but you and Cove were long past those tentative stages of friendship. Your room was as familiar to him as his own. You watched as Cove sat down in your desk chair, his preferred spot. He rolled it closer to the bed to make it easier to chat, tweaking the angle so that he was facing you fully. Once happy with the position, he leaned in towards you, hands held in his lap. His actions weren't the ones of someone who planned on moving from his spot anytime soon, even though you had an appointment to keep together that day. When is your mom leaving? We've got some time. She's still got a shower and stuff before she goes. She didn't want me to just keep hanging around while she was doing that. He lifted his head, his gaze drifting out through the window, and chuckled. I can't believe she's already leaving, just when I'm getting used to her being there every day. He leaned back in the chair, a wry smile tickling his cheeks. Yeah. He shook his head as if shaking off the topic like a dog whipping off water following a dip in the sea. Cove perched an elbow on the chair's arm and propped his jaw against his curled hand. There was a natural ease to his movements, a familiarity from the echoes of all the times before when he'd sat in that same position. This was a really nice summer. Yeah. Cove, still nestled cozily in your chair, smiled at your response. How are your fish doing? Oh my god. Snack? I hit my desk. Snack? Really good. Things in the tank are stable and everyone looks healthy. That was nice to hear. You learned from Cove how hard it was to maintain an aquarium. Not that I know of. Snack has been busy. Keep starting between the plants and out again when I walk by like a game of peekaboo. Or hide and seek. Yeah. Cove idly glanced out the window. He gave a resigned sigh. It's gonna be harder to surf, with school. It's getting colder out. I don't want to get rusty. I'm pretty sure there are places that have like surf trainer things inside. I'm sorry. You didn't feel like not being able to surf was a big deal, but you had sympathy for him. He gave a light smile coupled with a shrug as a response. Won't be long until we get our grades for that summer work we did. We're just having conversation after conversation. Cove's being fluttered as he huffed, sinking in the chair. I'm not looking forward to that. I'll be alright. Do you think we'll see Miranda around school this year? Probably. She could be in one of our classes again. It'd be nice to see her again. Kit, Cove! A sudden call from downstairs caught you both unaware. You'd nearly forgotten the world outside your room. From the guilty look on his face, Cove had done the same. Just had a call. Cove's mom is ready to go. If you're quick, she might keep the mandated motherly smothering to a minimum. You doubted that, but it was nice that Mom and Mrs. Priest had their strange sense of humor in common. Your eyes met Cove's. Wordlessly, you headed downstairs together. Each step on the way there was painfully slow, like he was trying to delay the inevitable. His whole body tensed leaving the house, and Cove froze altogether before you could both cross the street. The door's open. Dad must be taking your stuff out. He swallowed hard. She's really gonna leave. Pat. Your motion was soft, and at first you weren't sure if he even noticed. By the third, Cove released the tension in his shoulders. He looked at you like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. You nervously bit your bottom lip and nodded, giving his back a couple more reassuring pats. Thanks. At that, some of the conflict pouring on his face eased up a bit. Together, you went across the street and inside the house, finding his parents in the living room, surrounded by his mom's packed things. Hey kids. Good timing, I just called the taxi. And hi Kit, so glad I get to see you today. It was fabulous getting to know you this summer. I finally got to put a face to the name I've heard so many times. She winked, and Cove pouted on cue over the teasing. I'm really happy I got to meet you too. Hopefully it won't be too long before we see each other again. Nodding, Kyra turned her attention back to her boys. She patted Cliff on the arm with a warm smile, then she enveloped Cove in a crushing hug. Initially, Cove squirmed to break free from her grip, but his mom was unfazed and kept him locked in place. Heartbeats later, he gave in and hugged her back, tightly. And I'm so happy this trip was a success. You could say that, I guess. Cliff looked like he was bursting with pride. And then Cove stiffened. Kyra loosened her hold on him with enough to study his face, concerned. She spoke her next words in a whisper that had been meant just for her son. Do you want to unshelve it? Raising an eyebrow, Cliff watched them carefully. His smile began to falter. What's wrong? Cove sighed and his gaze flickered over to you for a moment. And then just as quick, it was back on his parents. It's alright. Are you sure? I don't want to do it now. I can tell Dad later. Nervously, you watched the exchange with the growing suspicion that Cove didn't want to have that conversation while you were there. You wondered if you should offer to leave when Kyra gave Cove a pat on the head. You can always call me if you want me to be part of the conversation, okay? I'll call. Thanks, Mom. Cliff still looked baffled about what Kyra and Cove were referring to, but you watched as his shoulders slowly relaxed. You figured that he decided to wait for Cove to be ready to talk to him. And with Cliff's silence, things seemed to be settled for now. After that, it wasn't long before the taxi arrived, rolling up in front of the house and in clear view of the open door. Kyra stood up, smiling sadly. Well, that's my ride. Yeah. The matching reply got a chuckle out of Kyra as you all filed out of the house. Father and son went with Kyra's bags in hand. Once outside, you spotted your family waiting by the street, and to your surprise, Derek was also with them. He stood uncomfortably, and he waved as soon as you noticed him. Hey, Kit. Hi, Cove. When did you get here? My dad dropped me off just a little bit ago. I thought I could visit one more time before school started. Oh. We're about to have emotions. You picked a busy time, sorry. Derek couldn't even look at Cove. He nervously kept rolling a pebble with the bottom of his shoe. I wasn't even thinking that your mom would be leaving today. I'm sorry, dude. What? You're not interrupting anything. You're always welcome here. It would have been sad if I didn't get to say goodbye before leaving. I think so too. It was apparent Derek would have preferred to have gotten there at a more opportune moment. He never liked seeming impolite, but their reassuring words soothed his worries. The tension he was holding in his body lessened, and he looked like he was feeling much more like himself. Bye, Derek. It was fun getting to know you. Bye, ma'am. Is there anything I can do to help? Nah, don't worry yourself over that. We're just about set. In that short amount of time, Cliff had gathered and packed the bags into the trunk. Kyra took one last look at everyone inside. Alright, I don't want to keep the driver waiting. It's time to head out. The little crowd that had formed around started their chorus of farewells and well wishes traveling, but Kyra still made no move to get into the taxi. She placed her attention on Cove. I'll call when I get to the airport and when I make it to Nevada. Also, you better call the moment you walk in the door at home, otherwise we'll be wondering all night if you got into trouble on the way there. I can do that. And could you call tomorrow, too, so I can tell you how school went? Of course, I want to hear all about it. Kyra put a hand on Cove's head and effectually ruffled his hair one last time. She then let go, only to move on to squeezing his cheeks in her hands instead. Mom, I love you so much. She was chuckling by the time she freed him and rounded things off with a small tap to the tip of his nose. Cove rubbed at his face with a grin. Finally, she walked to the car while waving and took her seat in the taxi. Cliff hooked an arm around Cove's shoulders and kept him close as it began to pull away. For a moment, Cove looked up at his dad, then wrapped an arm around his back. Bye, Mom! Bye, travel safe! Kyra rolled down the window and stuck her head out of it. She waved again while blowing kisses at Cove and Cliff. See you again! Before she was out of sight, you decided to do a little wave goodbye, just a little. As the taxi headed down the road, you stuck your hand in the air to send her off. The cab turned down another road and completely disappeared from view. Cove let go of his dad and took a few steps out into the empty street, still looking in the direction his mom went. He smiled quietly, deep in thought. You got the impression Cove was feeling better than he was earlier. He was finally content with the way things were. That's good. You jumped a bit when your mom put a hand on your shoulder, pulling you away from your thoughts. She smiled when you looked at her. This was a great vacation, huh? Shrug. A shrug? Wow, tough crowd. I'll have to start thinking about improvements for next year. Cove walked back over to the group, still genuinely happy. Derek grinned at him welcomingly, and everyone else there smiled at him, even Elizabeth. Well, Ma clapped her hands together, bringing everyone's attention back to the present. It's almost lunchtime. I think I'll put something special together. Her eyes sparkled with a plan, and Mom smiled. I bet you could use some help with that. That'd be absolutely wonderful. Derek glanced between the two, his eyebrows furrowed. Is there something I could do? Your moms exchanged a fond expression. Ma shook her head. That's very sweet, Derek, but it's alright. It's not your job. Technically, your dad left you under Cliff's watch. You're meant to be taken care of by him, not doing chores for the neighbors. Mom laughed a little over her own joke. He watched Derek look away, discouraged. It's okay, I don't mind. He was a little bashful about it. He wondered if Mom's joke had just reminded him that he wasn't initially meant to be invited to lunch. It was getting a little awkward. Mom grinned sympathetically. Her comment was meant to lighten the mood, not bring it back down. Ma tried again to get things moving forward. Why don't you kids go have fun? You can all come back in about an hour. We'll make enough for everyone. Mom nodded in agreement. Another stunning idea, Lonnie. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. That sounds like a plan, then. I don't want to cramp your style. I've got some stuff to work on, so I can be out of your hair this afternoon. You should come by later, too. No reason you should be the odd man out. Mom seemed amused as Cliff rubbed his neck, nervously. He grinned a wavering, but pleased smile. I appreciate the invite. He looked over at the assembled crowd with knowing glances. I can help too. With as many people as you're feeding, that's going to be a lot of food. Didn't you hear what we told Derek? It wouldn't be fair to make you cook when we're the ones who are inviting you in. Mom raised an eyebrow when Cliff waved it off. I insist. Derek would be missing time with his pals. This would be a break for me. I'm quite the chef. Ma and Mom exchanged further glances before Mom shrugged. An airtight argument. If you're sure, we'll be happy to have you, Chef Cliff. Cliff's grin widened and seemed more hyped than you expected him to be about helping with lunch. Ko shook his head, a fond smile on his face. Then all us grown-up people will be heading inside. I assume the rest of you kiddos are staying out? Maybe not all of them. Ma tilted her head, a silent question for Elizabeth. Your sister thought for a moment. I'll stay with the kids. Wow, really? That's great. Both your moms smiled at her, while Derek and Cove didn't seem to appreciate her phrasing. But with the plan decided, all three parents waved and headed for your house. It was just you teenagers now. Elizabeth looked at you and the others, a curious expression on her face. What now? You silently wondered if Elizabeth only stayed out with you to avoid getting roped into work. Then again, she could just genuinely want to hang out. You couldn't tell with your sister. Cove spoke up after no one else did to answer Elizabeth's question. Want to go down to the shopping street? It's been a while, and I don't think there's a lot of other things we could agree on. Yeah, sure. Sounds awesome to me. Unlike you guys, I haven't been there 1,001 times. It's new to me. Okay. You strolled across the road as a group, down to the beach, and then to the left. It took less than 15 minutes to arrive, one of the conveniences of Sunset Bird. The four of you looked around at the familiar shops, trying to see if anything caught your attention this time. Derek was the most enthusiastic. He checked out every stall with his eyes wide with wonder. Elizabeth and Cove were in good spirits as well. That's so cool. He ran over to a street magician who was currently doing a card trick for a group of enchanted tourists. Derek clapped when the magician showed a middle-aged man his card. Derek turned back to the group with a curious gleam on his face. What does it take to perform here anyway? Do you have to ask somebody, or do you just show up and start doing stuff? Who would you even ask? It's a public street. Hey, Mrs. Mayor, can I pull a rabbit out of my hat? Please, Flopsy is well behaved, I promise. Derek chuckled, his eyes searching up and down the scene. Maybe there's a boss of the shopping street? No one does any of this around my neighborhood. It's just regular stores behind walls. It's different if someone wants a real store, but here I'm pretty sure people are just putting on their own little shows whenever they want. Do whatever. It's so neat. Would we be allowed to do something too? Like what? Cove laughed, and Derek began almost vibrating with excitement. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. What would we do? Well, I don't know what. Not yet. I mean, I just found out it's a possibility, you know? But there's gotta be something. We know cool stuff. I'm sure if we think about it, we could plan a show that would really get a crowd pumped. You gave a look to the other two. Derek continued to brainstorm out loud about different potential performances while you glanced over at Cove and Elizabeth. I mean, I can bounce a soccer ball on my head. Last time I tried, I got 8 bounces before it fell. I'm so proud of you. I wouldn't bring a ball here. Why not? Cove gestured to everything around, the stalls, the people, all the colorful chaos that made up the shopping street. Would you want to chase the lost ball here? What if it hits someone? Even if you're good, someone else could bump into you. That's true. Derek thought about it some more. Then he watched another performer, a woman doing tricks with 2 small dogs. One was fluffy and cream-colored, while the other was a cool gray. The woman held up rings. Both animals jumped through the openings, happy to receive a treat at the end. Derek brightened. Maybe I'll teach crabs how to race. Crabs? It could work. With some amusement, the gang continued to peruse the stalls. Elizabeth found some earrings with a dangling, badly misprinted globe that everyone laughed at. Cove picked out a blob as Iceland, but Derek thought that it had to be Greenland. You know, this is a world with what looks like 9 continents. I think you're both wrong. No, it's Australia. The other 3 giggled at your interjection. Suddenly, Cove froze. He stared at him and then tried to see what caught his attention. When he saw a familiar face down the way, it all made sense. Oh no. Between the crowds, his bright hair stood out like a neon green bowl in a kitchen sink. It was Jeremy. Jeremy slowly drifted his eyes down the street, and his eyes widened in mutual recognition. He definitely noticed you. Derek frowned and Cove tensed up. You couldn't help but remember the last time you'd seen Jeremy at Miranda's birthday party. No wonder Cove was already defensive. You looked away. You didn't want to even start with Jeremy's shenanigans today. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. Her gaze swept over Jeremy without a hint of a clue. Jeremy simply scoffed to himself and waded deeper into the crowd of people. Derek relaxed and exhaled loudly. I'm glad he's not going to start anything. He peeked over at Elizabeth with a tiny smirk. See? That was the mean kid. Huh? She still didn't get it. That first summer day hadn't made nearly as much of an impression on her as it did for Derek, but he smiled and waved it off. Just forget about him. I already have. He laughed and Cove smiled lightly. He seemed in a much better mood now that Jeremy was gone. Your eyes wandered over to where Jeremy disappeared. You hadn't forgotten the day you met him either. He was only going to be in town for a vacation with the parents he hated. That glimpse was probably the last time you would ever see him. I will mention that to everyone. I don't think Jeremy will stay here with summer ending. That might have been the last time we'll ever see him. Yeah, I guess we won't have to worry about that guy anymore. Derek kicked at a rock in the road and clattered forward and then rolled under a stall. But I still think it's kind of sad Jeremy turned out to be, well, like he is. It would have been nice to make another friend. Cove shook his head. He was clearly not broken up over what might have been. Maybe he'll become nicer in the future. Elizabeth rolled her eyes at the strange farewell to the odd boy, not interested in the slightest. She clearly didn't understand his impact, and at this point she didn't want to understand. Jeremy was unlike anyone else you had ever met before. You thought he was kind of pitiful. You and the group moved on from the stall, and from Jeremy. It didn't take long for everyone to return to the joking. You all enjoyed what little time you had left as Elizabeth mentioned the hour was almost up. The little trip had flown by, and lunch must have been waiting for you by now. Derek bounced on the balls of his feet. Come on, guys, let's get going so we can eat. I'm starving. Okay. Cove stretched one of his arms lazily. Let's go then. You looked at him appraisingly. What? Let's just go. Then you followed Elizabeth as she took it upon herself to lead the way home. She walked fast, much faster than Derek preferred. She kept gaining a lead, and then Derek would jog back up to the group. With Cove's long legs, he had no trouble keeping up. I will stay with Derek, because we're both short motherfuckers. You gave Derek some company, which made him brighten up considerably. He brought up his idea of trying to make up a performance again, and you listened to his plans. For the most part, you could tell he was being silly on purpose, but there was a shine in his eyes. You both got so engrossed in conversation that you didn't notice how far you'd fallen behind your sister, until Cove looked over his shoulder and shouted something. Derek grinned at you, and then tried to make it a race to catch up with Elizabeth. It was a pleasant walk home, and in no time you had made it back. Derek got into the front door and held it open for everyone as you each moseyed inside. The three parents were still in the kitchen. They looked up and waved. Welcome back, everyone. You made it just in time. I hope you're hungry. So, did everyone have a nice time out? She gestured for people to take a seat at the table. Plates and silverware have already been placed out. You took your normal seat. Elizabeth sat across from you, and Derek took the seat to your left. Cove sat on your right. Oh yeah, we had a great time. It was fine. I had fun. Yeah, the bank heist went off without a hitch. Your joke got some chuckles around the table. That's good in my book. Casually, Mr. Holden sat in the empty seat across from Cove. He smiled at you and all the other kids. Mom set down the platter full of water glasses on the table. She looked down at the gathering. It's a good thing we have 8 chairs. I can't remember the last time we've had a group this big over for a meal. Can you pass the drinks down to the other side? Make sure everybody gets one. Sure. Those close to the cups obliged and started offering waters around. As everyone got set up, Ma chided Elizabeth to take her elbows off the table. And you shouldn't slouch. She pointed to Mr. Holden, who was leaning forward with both arms on the table. Oops. Mr. Holden seemed unsure about all the sudden attention and carefully rearranged his posture to something suitable for a fancy dinner. He smiled sheepishly at Ma. Elizabeth rolled her eyes, and Ma gave a level look at her. You shouldn't be impolite to a guest in the house either. Elizabeth groaned, long and long-suffering. Ma giggled, and Mr. Holden chuckled. The lot of you could learn a thing or two from Derek. He has the best manners here. Derek blushed, but it was true. His posture was upright and formal. He even held his fork gracefully. His table manners, on top of all of his attempts to aid your parents, made him the model of meal attendee behavior. It's nothing. It's true, though. You have been a lovely guest. I noticed that, too. It's always nice when you stay over, Derek. Derek smiled and sat a little taller in his chair. And do you have anything good to say about your other guest? She looked deliberately at Cove with a teasing smirk. Or is there just nothing to say? Well, Cove is my number 1, but he does still clean his hands by wiping them on his pants. Cove frowned at that and absentmindedly brushed his hands on his pant legs. Your moms laughed lightly. Elizabeth, you should know, after all these years, Cove is hardly a guest anymore. Cove smiled awkwardly. Thanks. I'd keep quiet. The parents had made an excellent lunch. You took another bite and minded your business. Everyone ate their meal together and continued to hang out for the afternoon. After the food, you and the others played a couple of games and talked about plans for the upcoming year. The time passed by quickly, and soon it was time to part ways. Mr. Holden talked to your moms, and Cove drifted over to you, knowing that as soon as his dad finished up, he would be leaving. It'd be cool to stay, but we have some stuff to do before everything closes today. Yeah, bye. Could you move? I need the phone. Damn, Elizabeth. Cove raised an eyebrow, and Elizabeth impatiently gestured behind him. Cove realized he was standing right in front of where the receiver was placed. He sidestepped out of the way and shook his head, clearly thinking Elizabeth was rushing too much. Your sister made a beeline for the phone and started dialing the number of what you figured was one of her friends, knowing Elizabeth she was going to be on for a while. You, Cove, and Derek shuffled closer to the door. It seemed like Mr. Holden was wrapping up his conversation, so everyone started saying their various farewells. See you later, Cove. We gotta do this again sometime. Yeah, see you. Cove turned to you and smiled slightly. Bye, Kit. You accompanied the gesture with a smile on your face. I didn't even read, I waved. Cove waved back with a warm look in his eyes. I'll see you soon, okay? Seriously, dude, we have to hang out later. I'm gonna miss you during school. He offered Cove a high five, and the two boys clapped their hands together. Cove and his dad left soon after that. Your parents started cleaning up the house, and Elizabeth was still chatting to her friends on the phone. Just you and Derek left. He elected to stay outside in front of the house to wait for his dad to pick him up. You decided to keep your guest company, although he was originally Cove's visitor. A light summer breeze blew through your hair, and Derek shifted his weight from foot to foot. Thanks for waiting with me. He kicked at the ground, distractedly. Dad's still gonna be a while, so do you want to go for a walk? Okay. The two of you walked down the street again, just wandering without a destination planned. It was a quiet stroll, too quiet for Derek being the company. You turned to him when you had noticed that he wasn't saying a word. That was unusual. Derek always had something he could chat about. You weren't sure if you should ask about it. Somehow, you ended up at the old park near the beach. You glanced over to Derek once more, still expecting him to say something any second now. However, nothing came from him. In fact, now you noticed a frown creeping on his face. Derek smiled when he realized you were watching. At least his mouth was turned up. There wasn't anything that really felt happy in the expression. He turned away and the smile fell off his face. His eyes stared intently at the ground, and he raised an eyebrow. What's up? I'm a little sad. It's just, with school starting back up again, it's gonna be harder to visit. I'm gonna have homework and clubs and practices and everything else. It really sucks that we go to different schools. His face screwed up and his fists were closed tightly together. This was really concerning him. What if we don't have time? Listen, we'll make time. We can talk over the phone and have plans for weekends. It'll be okay. Derek looked up at the sky. It was orange and purple with little wisps of clouds scattered about. The plane flew high with a jet stream trailing behind it. Then he turned to the ground again. Derek's face was tilted far enough down that it was harder to read his expression. Hey, Kit, I actually wanted to talk to you about something, if you don't mind. There was a pause and you waited for him to finish his thought. I was just kind of wondering, do you like guys at all? Like, would you ever want to be with someone who is a boy? Sorry if that's weird to ask. A little, but it's not your fault. I could be with a guy. Okay, then. Don't get pumped up about this. He hesitated before finishing his question. So, what I mean is, just, is there any guy you think is kind of cool that you like around here? Not at school or anything like that. He ducked his head further. He thought about it. Mr. Holden. No. There are a lot of guys, I think. I just want to hear his reaction to that. Oh, Derek shrugged and started to mumble and wonder. Maybe you don't get what I'm trying to ask. I just wanted to know what you said. Not right now, we'll say. Okay, I get that. So Derek pulled himself together. Somewhat meekly, he looked at you while he tried to project confidence. His posture was too tight for you to believe it. He was nervous. You know, thinking ahead and everything is important. You've got to get yourself a game plan and all that. It's good to make plans, especially backup plans. Don't think of yourself as a backup plan, dude. He babbled, all full of energy and forced gusto. Well, anyways, I heard about this thing where people make pacts with their good friends that if they don't find anyone else, then they get together. Together, like they get married and stuff. So I was thinking, since it's good to have plans, it might be cool if we did something like that. I love that I started this episode talking about how I would not do a Derek route. How fun. His eyes widened and he started to make frantic hand gestures. Oh, I was already down here, just like... just, you know, then we never have to worry about the future or finding someone. We can set it like a whole decade in the future, forever from now. We'd have graduated high school and probably college too. We'd have jobs and be really grown up. I mean, we'd probably have our own places and maybe our own pets and student loans and cars. You really think ahead, dude. Derek babbled on for a little while more. It was as if all the words he held in silence during your walk had burst out now, all at once. So, yeah, what do you think? I have many thoughts. Head empty. I want to know his answer if I say this, of course, but it's not... You don't have to think about that kind of thing right now. It's better to worry about all that later when we're gonna... Excuse me? I think you and me would work out the best for that, so I'm going back just because I didn't want to actually ask that. I just wanted to know his thoughts. I can't with you right now. Like, you better have been lying just to have saved face, because if you're really going into this like, I want to make plans with whatever is available, and you just seem like the best option, I'm gonna strangle you. I don't think that would work. I feel like I don't want him to be sad about it. I want to say that, like, I'll think about it. But ultimately, I know that my answer would be no. In the moment, I'd say I'd think about it, though. Let's be honest. It's kind of a big decision for just being put on the spot. Yeah, sure, don't worry about it. It was just an idea. Thanks for hearing me out and answering my questions and stuff. He felt a little worried that Derek wasn't happy. When he saw your face, he smiled encouragingly. I promise I'm not mad, I was just wondering. I'm sure things will be okay in the future, no matter what. You just nodded. You didn't spend much longer at the park after that. Derek didn't want to miss his dad, so you both made your way to the street. After Derek went back home, you decided to settle in for the night. Stretching your arms over your head, you noticed that the living room and the phone were free. It'd be fun to call Lee. You picked up the receiver and quickly punched in the familiar number while going to take a seat on the couch. Soon enough, after explaining the situation to their housekeeper, Lee answered. Hey. Hey, Lee, can you talk? Definitely, we practically have to. Oh my gosh, can you believe it's almost time for school to start? What happened to our summer? School starts first thing tomorrow for me. Ew, and I thought starting next week was bad enough. Enjoy your last week. Oh, I will. I hope you'll survive your first day. Me too. I need a good year. Ditto. And at least summer was nice while it lasted, right? We were busy. Yeah. Fondly, you thought about all the best memories you had made this summer. Lee was there for some, but there were still many you hadn't filled her in on yet. I could reminisce, I guess. You began to speak about... There's so... that incredibly hot afternoon. There's so many. That'd be so fun to tell her about the birthday party. But also the soiree. I think she'd really like hearing about the soiree. I think she'd really like it, so. I went to a soiree at my mom's country club. There was lots of food, dancing, and people dressed up formally. Oh, I've been to one of those. They're cool, but how did it go for you? You'd be so interested to know that Cove came. It turned out to be a pretty good night. Can't go wrong with a party. I bet there was plenty to remember. You could hear the troublesome grin on her face. Shaking your head a bit, you dove into telling Lee more about it. I can tell her about multiple? Oh my god, then you're gonna want to know about the birthday party. I went with Cove to a birthday party. It was for a classmate we had, Miranda. Ooh, birthday parties are always fun. There was a bounce house, games, and ice cream and cake. She knows how to throw a party. I made Cove wear one of the hats. It was amazing. And I bet he loved every minute of it. At that, you both burst into laughter. I don't think there's any other ones that we need to talk about. I feel like those are the only two. That she'd be really interested in, so. Okay, what'd you do? What was your big highlights of the summer, Lee? Talking to you is always the best part of my summer. That's so nice. Even though it was just a phone call, you just knew that Lee was winking at you. Good, I'm glad you picked the right answer. That had Lee laughing hard for a few moments. Alright, okay, so a high point for me was when I got to take that trip with my parents to Europe. That was amazing. You and Lee continued to go over your adventures until you both were yawning to each other over the phone. At that, you decided it was time to say goodbye for now. You didn't have school to wake up for in the morning. Bye, Lee. Night hit. Talk to you later. You left the phone on the side table for now. Looking at the clock on the wall, you saw that there was only about 10 minutes until your moms would be insisting you had to go to bed so you could be rested enough for school. You stretched your legs out on the couch and sighed in defeat, watching the minute hand change 1 minute closer to bedtime. You rearranged yourself, feeling restless, and looked out the window. Startled initially, you spotted a figure out in the hills. It was Cove. When the surprise faded, you realized it wasn't really that much of a shock at all. That was exactly something Cove would do. He smacked the window. Sure. Strolling casually, you went over to the front door. When you arrived, you noticed how many fireflies were out that night. They drifted along lazily, barely minding your presence as you waded through to reach the top of the hill. Cove turned towards you as you approached, and you noticed right away that Cove looked happy to see you. Of course. I'm the best person to be around. Hey. Smiling shyly, you stopped in front of him. Your fingers nervously pulled at a loose string hanging off your shirt. Hi. What are you doing out here? Nothing. Not really. He shrugged, seeming unhappy with his own answer. You stared at him, waiting for him to continue. Well, I guess I was feeling a little weird about stuff, so I'm getting some fresh air before bed. Damn, sucks for you. Anyway, I feel great. Nod. His mouth pulled into a bent smile. Cove let himself fall back onto his butt and then all the way down, so he was laying on his back. He looked up at the sky. You savage. Now. Sit in the grass. You lowered yourself to sit nearby. No, I want to know what he says in reaction to that. What the hell? He made himself a pretty available seat with the way he was laid out. You flopped yourself square in the middle of his torso. Get it. He jolted up in surprise, though couldn't get far with you on top of him. He popped right back down into the grass. With a huff, he just gave up on being shocked. Fine. And then that's it. That's all? Okay. I love it. 10 out of 10. Anyway, I will sit next to you in the grass. I just really wanted to know. He had been lost in thought, or was possibly waiting for you to situate yourself, but he started speaking unprompted again. I'm sorry for being kind of awkward when my mom was leaving. Surprised, you stared at him a moment. You weren't expecting that. I just wanted you to know that I talked to my dad about how I felt and things. It's okay now. You were genuinely glad to hear that, and it brought a small smile to your face, but your thoughts quickly wandered back to the first day you met Mr. Holden. Did his dad confess about that? From the way Cove talked, you guess he hadn't. So there was more Cove and his dad should talk about, but it was a relief to know that they had made a start. Now was not a good time to bring up what you were thinking, though. You could wait longer to say it. It was almost unbelievable how much of an impact he made on your life just by moving in next door. You couldn't even imagine what your days might have looked like in a world where you hadn't met him. Cove glanced back at you, waiting for a response. You had no idea what to say. Then, still without a word from you, Cove gave an exaggerated shrug. What? It's you. Me? Huh? He snickered before answering. He looked thoroughly amused with your reaction. That's what you do all the time, so I'm being you. That's what I do in real life. You're so right. But you didn't have to say it like that. What the fuck? No, I would argue. I like not being able to argue with his assistant. No, I'm arguing. I guess a little bit bashful. Feeling self-conscious, you glanced at the ground and felt a blush burn across your face. When you dared look back, you saw that Cove was smiling apologetically. He wasn't trying to be mean with it. Honestly, there weren't many people you could think of who could tease you about something like that. Returning his smile, you realized that there was no denying that you two have been around each other for a long time. Cove broke the quiet before it could fully settle. Hey, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah. See you then. With a final wave, Cove headed for home, but you stayed there a few minutes longer. Your mind kept going back to his simple statement, see you tomorrow. No matter how much was changing around you, there were some things in your life that always seemed to remain true. The hills felt warm to you that night. Before you knew it, you were getting comfortable under the covers of your room. Your mind couldn't help but still be buzzing with thoughts about the future. You felt... I don't know. Unsure, I guess. A new chapter of your life was about to begin, and no one could say what it was going to be like. Slowly, your eyes grew heavy as you drifted off to sleep, your mind spinning with wishful thoughts. No matter what happened next, you could only hope that you would make the most of it. You were ensnared in a dream when a noise from the outside world jostled you. You snapped your eyes open. My nightmares start like this. The light clatter continued. Now that you were more alert, you could distinguish it as a tapping sound. Quiet, slow, but persistent. Each beat was like being poked. You couldn't ignore it. You lifted your head from the pillow and looked for the source. Not much work was needed to puzzle it out. It was from the window. With that, you knew exactly what it was. From the color of the light filtering into your room, it was too early for anyone to be awake, including the sun. It barely hauled itself over the horizon. But that didn't stop some people, it seemed. Open the window. It's not tomorrow yet! You sat up in bed and opened the window wide. Cool air, not yet warmed by the day, tickled your face as it pushed into your room. And just as you expected, there was your neighbor crouching on your windowsill. He was fully dressed, though not for school. Not morning yet, push. He was wearing a wetsuit and a fond smile. Hi, Kit. You stared back, blinking. So technically we won't be back for school for a few more hours. His voice was delicate yet deliberate, each word a careful explanation. Classes haven't actually started yet, so do you want to hit the beach with me one more time this summer? Here we go again. It is way too early. But I wouldn't say that to you. You are also crazy. What does here we go again? Your comment was half-hearted and you both knew it. Only Cove would think of something like this, and that was part of what made him special to you. Cove chuckled conspiratorially, his smile widening. He rushed to get changed into something suitable while Cove climbed back down to ground level. Am I gonna go out the window? Your limbs, still half asleep, struggled somewhat as you attempted to coordinate them into a swimsuit. But you got there in the end. Soon you were tiptoeing out of your front door, good, clutching a towel. Cove was already there to greet you. Your eyes met. Cove's gaze darted to your destination and back to you. You checked the door. Was closed. Yeah, that makes sense. Gave him a thumbs up, and the two of you leapt into action. Wordlessly, you began to run down the familiar path ahead, Cove beside you. The thrill of your illicit outing made you want to laugh. Not that you dared. If anyone in your family looked out and saw you, then your summer would be back to being over. One glance at Cove told you he was exactly the same, holding back snickers for fear of being heard and then caught. The towel streamed out from under your arm like a cape. You were running so fast downhill that simply keeping your balance and not tumbling down was a real threat. It just wasn't enough to make you slow your pace. For every step you took, the beach was a little closer, and the day a little brighter. What lay ahead of you would arrive, and you were happy to meet it. That was cute. Okay. I was like, that's a good ending. In between. Woo! Let me see, because I have thoughts about this. I'm debating, because when I was 18, which is the age that we will be now, I dyed my hair. And I'm debating whether or not I want to do it in this, right? Like, I think that would be fun. A fun little moment. Let's see. I still have acne. I wasn't quite old enough for the earrings yet at 18. I'm sorry. These are still good. I had not braces at 18. Ring. Jewels, pattern, plain, none. I wore a ring when I was a kid, not so much at 18. Headscarf. Nail length. Nail color. This is so exciting. Nose ring, no. Okay. Here's the real question, though. I'm nervous. Done. My feelings. I forgot about this. At 18, I feel like I had gone to direct. And I think we're gonna move up one more as well. Little blushes. Hold on, I just want to see the faces. Cute. We're gonna move up one. We could move up two, but we'll move up one. Oh boy. Okay. Yes. Both. That's what I thought you were going to have. I hate that hairstyle. There's one also in the next arc that I hate as well. But I was hoping I wouldn't get this hairstyle. Okay. We're gonna change it. This, for some reason, is giving male pattern baldness. I don't know why. But I don't like it. I've seen this on him. And then this one, it's like, it's okay. It's not my favorite. But I don't like this one for some reason. So I guess we'll go with this. I don't like that either, but you know, whatever. He comes with glasses this time. And he can keep the glasses. I don't know. He does not come with earrings. I love that earrings are... Hold on. None of these options will show the earrings, really. I don't know what earrings 1 looks like. Oh, they're down here. They're just a little thing. Those earrings are like mine. Okay. The shirt he comes with is this one, but I just want to see the options. That's a nice shirt. You can keep that one. Those pants aren't my favorite, but they are what you came with, so I will allow it. You have nothing on your left wrist. On your right wrist, you have this one. And you have a necklace. Okay. Listen, the only thing that I'm changing is the hair because that's important to me. Otherwise... I don't know how I feel. I don't know how I feel. Because this looks silly and stupid on you. But this one looks silly too. This one's like a little bit more immature. Okay, we'll go with this one. Pajamas, I hate them. I hate both options. So we're good. Pants, you're fine. Swimsuit, sure. You could have it in pink if you really wanted. Shirt, that's a nice shirt. You have 2 options, they're both black. Understandable. Okay. Done. We are cold. What? I didn't read this one yet. What? How did I go from a warm jock to a cold nerd? Oh my god. Okay, I should continue on, but like, oh my god. Cove did a complete 360. Huh? Since you're romantically interested in Cove and are old enough to start being physically affectionate more seriously, you can choose what initiative level he has throughout this step. Making sure the player experiences what they want is important in our life, but always putting your choice first can potentially make your relationship a little better. So we've added some extra flexibility in how it works out. Okay. Low initiative means Cove will occasionally ask to touch the MC, and in those situations there will always be an opportunity to say yes or no. I love that so much. Wish we had it for the hugs in last section, but okay. For example, he won't simply lean over and kiss the MC as a greeting or in an emotional moment. Every piece of physical interaction will either be initiated or approved by the player before it happens. I love that. Middle initiative means that there will be certain times when Cove requests any chances to initiate on your own, and he will also pretty regularly give affection automatically. One example would be giving the MC a kiss because he's happy or emotional or something else. And in other situations, you can choose to not make the first move in order to give Cove the space to be the one to act afterwards. Okay. Overall, the love interest can get romantic, but the player's agency will take priority. Okay. High initiative includes everything middle does, but also means that the player agency will be reduced to a degree in favor of having Cove give physical affection even more frequently and with less prompting. Instead of all the major affection-giving situations being led by a choice menu for you to decide on, some will instead be replaced by Cove just acting on it. This level is only recommended if you're very comfortable with physical affection. Yeah, I've noticed he's a little bit physical, and would prefer to simply see it happen rather than always holding the reins on it. However, this level is mostly relevant if Cove ends up as your official boyfriend at some point. Situations where high-level initiative makes a difference tend to come up in scenes that are exclusive to being in a relationship. The parts that are also included in the middle initiative will be seen whether you're dating or not. Once you pick your level, it can't be changed partway through a step. The choice comes up at the very beginning of a story section. Okay. I would not necessarily mind middle initiative. And I kind of want to play around with this in order to see, hold on. There we go. In order to see like what fully the difference is here. But I do not think I would necessarily mind middle initiative a lot of the time. However, low initiative sounds so nice. Asking every single time. My dreams are low initiative, okay? Do you understand here? I'm gonna go low. The start of classes ended the relaxed free days of summer. It didn't take long for you to get back into the swing of the school year routine. Schedules and homework became the new normal. Derek wasn't around nearly as much. With school and after-school activities, there weren't many opportunities for him to take the trip out to your neighborhood. Sometimes you'd hear that he was at training camp or something like that, but you weren't always sure what he was up to. But you still kept in touch over the phone as best you could. The Jeremy kid did disappear after the summer, and no one ever heard from him ever again. Where he went or what he might be up to was a mystery. You saw more of Miranda around. Since you had hung out on her birthday, she had opened up to you. The two of you started talking regularly. She was the same towards Cove, who is now cold as fuck. After a while, all three of you developed a real friendship together. More summers came and went, just like the waves on the shore, coming in and out. Okay, in your second year of high school, someone new started to visit Sunset Bird, a sunny girl named Terry Brooke. She was a friend Cove made, due to them both being ocean-obsessed, okay? Terry was more than glad to befriend you two. Someone close to Cove had to be good company, she felt. You were pleased to get along with her as well. Funnily enough, Terry was also extremely tight with Miranda, who she had known for even longer than Cove. The four of you were able to create a small friend circle. I love that for us. As for your home life, the thickets also had developments. Changing laws and public perception countrywide made it possible for your moms to openly wear their wedding rings without questions. That's so fun. Though they had a wedding years ago, it was only recently that the union was officially recognized everywhere in the US. That was a good day, to say the least. Elizabeth came into her own and stopped being quite as irritable. She no longer worried about perceived childishness as she grew up for real. She didn't even mind being called Lizzie again, although most people usually used Liz. She eventually graduated high school and moved out to attend college in another state. It was a lot for you to adjust to your older sister being gone. Liz never let you forget her role in your life, though, and kept in touch. Cove's relationships with his family improved over the years. Kyra visited several times after that summer, and things became easier between the two. He was also closer with his dad than ever before. You knew they talked more, and that helped prevent a lot of friction before it could start. That's good. However, Cove grew into someone no one would call social. He kept to himself, usually. He cared for the few connections he did have, but didn't reach outside them. Wild. Cove had shifted from preferring athletics to becoming more seriously studious as his schooling went on. Things had shifted between you and Cove. You had been friends for years, but the closer you became, the more you felt for him. Don't say this. Stop, right here. I know I chose it, but stop. You didn't view him in a purely platonic way anymore. It was strange to look back on it all. The future faded into your present, and then it was simply the past. Even the most fundamental parts of your life couldn't last forever. You felt that the most pointedly the day you inevitably graduated high school. Wait, this starts after graduation? I thought we would be in our last year of school. We graduated? It was over, and you would not be going back ever again. From now on, what came next was your choice. You would be directing your own life. That was where you were currently. The summer after school had ended. The first summer of true freedom. What used to be a reprieve from the typical was now going to be your first step into adulthood. I cannot believe this. I think what we'll do, because I'm scared that this episode is going to go a little bit over, and I probably need to stop it at some point, is I'm going to end it here. But this is definitely not what I was expecting. Also, oh my god. We're 18 now. We went through the 13-year-old arc. And we're adults? Wild. Anyway, thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you are excited to see what comes next in this game. I know I definitely am. And I'll see you next time for the end of this little middle section here, and to see what kind of moments we have in step 3. Oh my god.